Hey y'all, welcome back to Parental Advisory.
Hello. Chronicles of the Sandwich Generation.
I'm Shirley, and as always, I am here with my beautiful daughter, Tori.
Hey y'all.
And today I'm excited to bring my favorite guy on, my dad. Today we're going to be talking about all things transition, moving from the DMV in the Maryland area to here in Tampa. You've been hearing us tell some of our stories and our side, but we want you to hear the real deal, raw and real from Dad. So we're going to bring him on in just a minute.
Yes, and this was not your average move. This was a whole thing because if you remember, Grandma and Papa had built a very cozy, comfortable, well-connected, thriving life of 40 years in the DMV. And then here we are just kind of flipping it all upside down. But they rode the wave. They've been really, really cool about it. So we have Papa on the podcast today, and I'm really, really excited to kind of talk through what his journey looked and felt like.
Yep, and look, today is not going to be just about logistics. We're literally going to get into the real deal about how Dad felt. We're going to get into his emotions, the process, the thinking, his mindset, and coming into a whole new environment and making a transition at nearly 79, 80 years old at the time. Look, I'm going to tell y'all this because I can and because I know he looks so good. My dad is about to turn 82 years old this year in 2025. He looks amazing and he's doing great and wonderful. So I'm happy and really honored to have him here. But he's in this new environment. So I want you to stick around because you get a chance to hear a little bit of the ups, the downs, the transitions, but most importantly, how we've been able to make it possible working with him.
All right. So without further ado, Parental Advisory starts right now.
Woo!
All right, y'all, so this is the moment I'm really excited that we all have been waiting for. Y'all meet Papa. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Yeah, so Papa, this is his first time on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so y'all in for a treat because this is the character of the family.
He's a patriarch, but you know what, too? He's a good character, and I'm telling you, he's a friend as well. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Pop, First things first, what is the first emotion you felt about moving?
Well, I really said to myself, I'm not going to Florida. First of all, it's too far away. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I built my legacy here in Maryland. Mm-hmm. I've been here for 40 years. And I was just thinking about I got to unravel and do all I've done over 40 years and start all over again.
That's what it felt like.
And I said, no.
Yeah.
No. My wife was ready to go the minute they mentioned it, but I wasn't.
Right.
So it took me time. It took time, and it took time to make this decision. Mm-hmm. But finally, I gave in to the women. You know, one man trying to fight three women, you know, you got your hands full.
Okay.
We were influential and persuasive, but Dad, talk a little bit about, too, this wasn't just like up and we did it. This was over a few years, right? Because remember, y'all, COVID hit in 2020.
So let's take us back in time. We're going to run the timeline through from Papa's perspective, right? So when we picked up with Grandma, we were talking about 2019, 2020 hit, the world shut down. Pop, what were you doing in 2020?
What was I doing in 2020? I was trying to get Trump out of the White House.
Just like that, okay.
I was trying to get Trump out of the White House and get the Democrats back into the White House. So
and you were working?
Yes, and I was working, so things would run smoother, and I felt like it would be better for us to have a Democrat versus a Republican.
Okay, so that was his focus in the middle of COVID, and rightfully so, with his lifestyle.
He was working too.
Right, so tell the folks what you do, Papa.
Well, what I
did for
40 years, in fact, not only 45 years, say 50 years.
Okay.
I've been in sales all my life.
Okay.
Really. I started off selling RC Colas. I left the RC Cola plant and went to Pepperidge Farm Bread.
Okay.
And I got a story to tell you about what happened.
Okay.
Down at Pepperidge Farm, I went there to put a vending machine in the warehouse where they distribute the bread. And I'm driving a RC truck.
What's the RC truck?
RC Cola truck.
Oh, okay.
The RC Colas that you
big
drink.
18-wheelers.
The big 18-wheelers. And I go in to put in a machine into the bread company.
Okay.
And I asked for Mr. Foley, who owned Pepperidge Farm. And he came out and he spoke to me, and I said, yes. I said, Mr. Foley, what about a new machine in your business? He said, oh, no, Joe. He said, that's a sore spot for me. He said, my wife, she said, no, she didn't want no machines in the building. I said, well, you're working hard out here. You have no air conditioning in the building. I said, it would be nice if you could get a cold soda. No, he said, Joe, no. I said, well, where is Miss Foley? I said, do you mind if I speak to her? And he said, no, I don't want her to embarrass you. I said, Mr. Foley, I've been embarrassed all my life, and I'm not thin-skinned, and I can accept the facts that she say no. Just give me the opportunity to tell her why it would be important to put a machine in your place. Okay. He said, all right, Joe. And he took me in. He said, her name was Maul. I'll never forget. He called, Ma, Joe want to speak to you. And he ran back out of the building. And I wonder why he ran away so soon. I thought he was going to sit in on the conversation when I present to her what I had to offer. But no, he ran away. And Miss Foley took me back in the office, and she said, yes, Joe. I said, yes, Miss Foley. I said, you know, it's very hot in your building. I said, I see you only have a little water. How would you like to have a RC Cola machine in your building? She said, no, thanks. I've had it offered so many times. But no, we'd rather not have one. I said, well, Miss Foley, let me ask you a question. I said, what if I can put your machine in your warehouse and it don't cost you a dime? And see, I found out, first of all, people don't tell you really why they don't want something in the building. She didn't want another bill. So the key word there was, if I can put it in free.
Correct.
She's told me, she said, no, you can't do that. I said, if I could, would you? She said, yes. How soon would you like for me to bring you a machine, Miss Foley? She said, bring it tomorrow if you can do that. So after the conversation with Miss Foley, I go back outside. Her husband was standing out there. Well, Joe, how did it go? I said, she told me to bring a machine tomorrow. No, my wife didn't tell you to bring the machine. And he ran back in the building and all. Ma, did you tell Joe to bring a machine out here tomorrow? It was unbelievable.
Couldn't believe it.
It was unbelievable. So she said, yes, I did. And he looked around, and he looked at my truck, and he looked at me. And he said, Joe, I would like to speak to you in my office. I go back in his office, and he said, Joe, how would you like to sell Pepperidge Farm bread? I said, I would love it. I said, it's much lighter than those sodas and going in alleys and whatever you, with hand trucks and whatever. He said, how soon would you like to come to work for me?
Oh my God. And that's how you got your sales start?
That's how I got the job, selling bread versus RC Colas.
Yeah,
and you know RC Colas are much lighter than, bread is much lighter than RC Colas. And he hired me on the spot. He said, can you start Monday? This was on a Thursday. I said, well, Mr. Foley, no, I won't do them that way, because if I were going to leave your company, I would want to give you at least a notice. Yeah. He said, okay, Joe, just let me know when you want to do it. So I go back to RC Cola, and for some reason I had a run-in with the owner, with the boss. And the boss made my decision that day.
Oh.
I told the boss at RC Cola, I said, sir, I'm going to be just as nice to you as you was to me. He said, what's that, Joe? I said, you gave me this job, I'm going to give it back to you.
Oh my God. That's a good one. So for the next 40 years, you were able to build on that career, become top salesman at everywhere you went.
Everywhere.
Everywhere he went.
Yes.
And that also plays a part on why so many people love Papa.
But he left Pepperidge Farm.
Okay.
And then I've known that, I remember him Pepperidge Farm. I don't remember RC Cola. I remember Pepperidge Farm because Dad used to pick me and Craig up in the Pepperidge Farm truck, and we would have our snack because we could get the Pepperidge Farm cookies,
Yes.
the donuts,
Yes.
all of the sweets and stuff.
Oh, I forgot they made. I was thinking of the bread.
I eat Pepperidge Farm cookies today, probably because of my exposure to it early on, but they had this cookie called the Molasses Crisp, and I absolutely loved them. They got rid of that, but now today they're called the Bordeaux. So
Okay.
I'm giving a nice push because Pepperidge Farm is still in business today.
Right, come on here and sponsor an episode.
Okay, but anyway, he left Pepperidge Farm and then ultimately got into selling cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a little bit about the background of Papa. And so we were asking you originally, with that 40 years of life and connections and success, how you were able to say in 2020, things are changing, life is changing, the world is changing.
I'm getting older.
Yeah, when did you decide to retire?
Well, COVID made me retire.
Okay.
When COVID came out, I went in.
Okay.
So COVID was my retirement.
Okay. It was an unofficial retirement, though.
In the beginning.
Okay.
But I found out, that I had put so much time in sales and whatever it was time for me to take a break.
Got you. Very good. So that's the timeline of when he started, I guess in his mind, he started to already make a shift. And in 2020, Mom had them come down as COVID was kind of keeping folks inside. I think it was a safety precaution, but it was also, I don't want y'all stuck in the house during the winter months of COVID because you're already sequestered, and then the weather adds an extra element of danger just because Maryland winters are a little rougher than Florida winters with the ice and the snow.
Yeah.
So Pop, talk about that first time, if you can remember, the first time you came down here to do a project with my mom.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, I was tricked to come down to help my daughter with a project she had for us to do, because one thing about my daughter, she does respect our opinions about certain things in the house and what have you. And she's very easy to get along with, and she's very easy to work with. So we came down that winter and we did the project on the home, wherein, she didn't want carpet on the floor, she didn't want anything. So really, we gutted that place out.
And it wasn't just carpet, Dad.
Yeah.
I mean, we
paint.
did everything from painting to replacing appliances and, having to do all the AV, HVAC and all of that because it was a used home and a lot of renters had been in there and had left it in good shape. So we were able to gut it, but it just became a wonderful family project because Dad's good with his hands.
I was going to say, Papa's our
Mom
handyman.
has an eye for design and decorations, which is where I got it from, which is now passed on to Tori as well. Yeah.
Okay. So that turned into what was supposed to be maybe here for a couple of weeks. They ended up...
I knew they were going to stay for at least a month or two.
Yeah.
But it ended up being 4.5 months.
Right. So a couple of weeks is like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, when we going back? Well, I guess we'll go back next week. And then that next week just turned into 4 months. And I remember them coming down at like the end of October, November, and not going back until March.
Yeah.
So when you had that experience then, did you like Florida?
Yes, I did. I did because there again, it was cold back home and the weather was nice here. So I really enjoyed that part of Florida.
Okay.
Being warm even in the wintertime, wherein I would have to be inside back home, I still could spend and do my thing on the outside. Because I'm an outside person. I like working in the yard. And
He's a country boy, y'all.
You
I
name
had a
it.
lot of daddy do projects.
I was gonna say
Inside
she
and
had a
outside.
list for him, and I think that he thought it was a vacation, and she knew it was gonna be a whole list of things that
But
she
it
was
was
waiting for
fun
him.
stuff.
Yeah, she was waiting for him to come so they could do them together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Things
for
that
sure.
I knew Dad could do. And it kept us close together.
Yeah.
It kept us protected from COVID.
Yeah.
And it was a time where, for me, I had never lived with my parents since I left home at 17.
Oh, yeah.
And I never went back home to live with them. I always went back to visit. So this was 40 years later of never living with my parents, being my own person, them doing their own thing. And we really reintroduced ourselves as adults. Because I left home still as a teenager. But they're coming back now to live with me as a grown woman almost 40 years later. So it was a reintroduction of them seeing me as an adult woman and me seeing them not only as my parents, but
Roommates.
older adults.
Yeah.
And now living together. So that was a transition.
Right. And so I think it's important to know that as we were thinking about relocating them, it didn't start out as a relocation.
No, it didn't.
It really started out as we just wanted them to visit for COVID. My mom had some projects, so it just made sense to bring them. And then it was one vacation that turned into an extended vacation. They stayed till March. Then they did it again the next year. Decided, you know what, that wasn't so bad.
I got more projects for y'all to do.
Right. So then they said, you know what, we'll do the same time frame. We'll come back in November, stay through the holidays, and go back. And they were driving, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was an important part of it, too, because it gave them... talk about why you love road trips so much, Papa.
Well, a lot of people, don't like driving, but I like driving because first of all, it's very relaxing.
Okay.
You get a chance to see all the sceneries, and wherever you're in the airplane, you don't see nothing but maybe a cloud every now and then. Plus, it's a shorter trip. But the driving, it relaxes me. It gives me a chance to think and, view country lives and what have you, wherever you don't get a chance to see this on the plane. So I have no problem with driving a long distance. All my family was telling me, 1,000 miles is too far for you to drive. But little did they knew, it was very relaxing because I knew when I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning that I was facing 15 hours.
And tell them about how the first time I got you down here.
Oh, yeah,
That's
this
a good
is my
story.
navigator.
Hi,
My
remember MapQuest,
navigator,
y'all?
yes. I asked her how to get from Jacksonville to Tampa because I was going to follow 95 all the way into Orlando, but she was living in Orlando, and she told me, she said, no, Papa, you don't want to go that route. She said, hit number 10. Out of Jacksonville. She said, you're going to see a sign stating that 295 versus 95.
Okay.
And when you hit 295, you're going to see a sign saying 10, Route 10. So she said, get on Route 10, and you have about 18 miles.
And you would call
He
me.
remembers these specific
He
directions.
does. 'Cause I sure don't.
18 miles on Route 10, and she said that's going to take you into
To the next exit.
to 301,
Yep.
which was 301. And she told me even the time it was going to take me on 301.
And I said, just
to
call
get
me when you
to
get there.
75. And she said, always call me when you need me, and that way I won't be really disturbing you while you're driving.
Because that was the thing. All of us knew that Papa was on this 18-hour road trip, and I'm going to be honest, we were nervous about it. Just for our own reasons, Papa was fine, but we were nervous. And so he had a lot of folks calling. He has kids, he has grandkids, and all of us were blowing up his phone. Just checking in, and we tried to do it in shifts, but sometimes my mom would call, and I don't know that she just got off the phone with him. Uncle Craig done called him, Brian
You
done
want to make
called
sure
him.
he's staying awake, staying alert.
Exactly.
That he's not lost somewhere.
Right.
He's just learned how to use his phone, and
Exactly.
MapQuest had messed up on his phone. So he had to call you to walk him in.
That's what happened.
Then he's gotten really good about using Google Maps and all of that now. But
Right.
at that time, that was his first time really using it.
Exactly.
And he lost it.
Yeah, I guess you know how you just swipe up and he
Did
lost
the
it.
wrong thing, he couldn't get back on it.
Didn't know how to get back on it. And so I told him, I said, Pop, I'm not going to bother you, but you just call me. It should be about an hour that you'll be here. So call me back in an hour. I'll give you the next step. So it really felt like a little scavenger hunt we were doing.
That's right.
And sure enough, he got in there. When he made it to my mom's house, he was so proud. And I felt good, too, because I'm usually directionally challenged. But I know he needed me, so I put my little thinking cap on. And that was a really fun memory of the first big road trip that he made. And then he's been doing them back and forth ever since on his own.
Right.
You know about heart now.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have a navigation in my head now.
Yeah. All he
Yeah.
need to do is see something one time, and he just remembers it. So now, Pop, we've walked him from 19 to 20 to 21. When did you realize she was trying to get you down here for good?
Well, I think the second time we came down, she said, Dad, why don't you and Mom turn you turn it into snowbirds? I said, what is a snowbird? She said, oh, no, you come here in the wintertime and you go back to your place in the summertime.
Okay.
And I told my wife, I said, well, baby, that sounds good. I said, now you like warm weather all the year round. I said, this will accommodate you. I said, but I can deal with the hot, I can deal with the cold. But for you, what we would do, we would turn this into our winter vacation.
There you go.
So we did this for 3 years. But prior to the 3 years, my daughter, she started going, she said, well, Mom, Dad, come on, I want to take you somewhere. So we jumped in the car, have no clue as to where we're going. And she pulled up to this house and she said, but Dad, Mom, how do you like this? I said, I like it. I said, but
what are we looking for?
What are we looking for? Who are we looking for? Had no clue that she was looking for us and herself.
So you just
It
sprung
dawned on me. Yes, I was thinking, I said, she must be looking for a place for someone else. I said, no, this can't be us,
Yeah.
right? So, and this thing continued on, and then we went to places. Oh, Dad, come on, Mom, come on, we got another place we want to look at. So I started thinking, I said, I know she's not looking at homes for other people just like this. And then it dawned on me, she must be looking for some place for us to live. And I told my wife, I said, no, this can't happen. I said, no, we got to stay right there in our little place in Maryland, that we are used to after 40 years. But then I told her, I said, well, never say never. I said, now we are getting older. So I'll be 80 my birthday, you'll be 79 your birthday. And I said, and I started thinking. And one of my things that I never wanted to do was be placed in a rest home or nursery home.
Yeah.
So then my lights went on.
He said, it's this or that.
Okay. Either the nurse home or my daughter's home. But the daughter's home sounds so much better than a nurse home.
Correct.
And I knew I would be well taken care of.
Yes.
And two, I thought about so many times that when your children grow up and they get older and you get older, they don't have room for you. They don't want you to be around them that much.
Yeah.
And I took that under consideration that my daughter wanted us to spend the rest of our lives with her. I told my wife, I said, no, we cannot say no to that because so many parents don't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
The kids will throw them out to the woods, throw them in rest home or what have you. They don't visit their parents. And I thought about that. I said, this has to be a God-sent blessing for me and my wife.
Yes.
So that's what happened.
Very good.
That's how we got to Florida.
Very good. So, Mom, once you got, like I said, Grandma was a yes easy. We knew that once he got on board, we could really start getting the wheels to turn. So what was the very first thing once he said yes, that y'all said, okay, this is the first step?
Let's talk about getting him to yes.
Okay.
Because as he said too, he thought about it, but as Dad he made that decision, but the transition between his yes in March and getting him here in November was a process too.
Okay.
But here's the thing. There's a couple things that Dad needed in order to get to his yes. Not only yes, that my daughter wants me to be with her, we can live well together, we get along and enjoy each other's company, but it was also, he wanted space, he wanted land, he wanted to be able to have access to horses and stuff like that, because that's what he had in Maryland. That was important. And he wanted to be able to have access to get to his room. You know how, like, as you get older, you don't want steps.
That's true.
So it was like, okay, then I need to make sure that him and Mom can get in and out. And what was so amazing is the house, the first one we looked at was a really nice big house. It was much bigger than what I was living in. It had land around it, more land than what Dad had. And it was not close to neighbors, because Dad despised having houses that was so close together that you could pass a hot dog from your grill to your neighbors.
Yeah, he don't like being on top of somebody.
This was spacious and it was private. It was kind of off the beaten path, but still close to everything. So it was like he had all of these little checks of things that he needed to have happen. And I was able to then check that, check that, check that.
Right.
And then finally, he's like, okay, your sister done stuck a fork in me. He called my brothers and said, I'm done. Your sister has stuck a fork in me. Every excuse I had.
Was he picky?
No, not picky, but just wanted some of the things. He wanted to be able to bring some of his toys, like his tractor, his lawnmower, and stuff like that. But the other part about it, what I think helped convince Dad was I said, Dad, I want you to be able to sell your home. You've been in a house for all these years. You got a lot of equity in it. Sell that house, live on the proceeds along with your retirement, Social Security and all of that, and let that be the best of your life for the rest of your life. Yeah. We don't want your money. You don't have to leave that to us. Live on it and have a great time and not leave us, the kids, with having to sell all the things, not knowing what you wanted here and there, because they had so much stuff that had been built up. I mean, my dad was a Fred Sanford, for some of y'all who know that. He collected things, he fixed things, he built things. But I mean, truly.
And he kept the things that he built. And so it had just it just accumulated 40 years worth of life. They had, Grandma had her little shed, and he had built this beautiful barn house out there. And
3 of them. Three sheds and barns.
He had workshops. It was a lot of stuff to go through. So,
but I wanted them to go through it. I wanted them to be able to purge and sell. And have that opportunity, not wait till they got too old that they couldn't do it, and then leave it to us. Because I told them, we're going to have a fire sale. And I was like, we don't want to do that. Let them do that. So it was really good for them to have that control.
Okay, so we created a little bit of a checklist, and that we're going to kind of talk through. We had a few points that were major considerations that we think may help you all if you have family members that are relocating, if you have parents that perhaps this is on the table and you don't know where to start. Here's a few items that we thought about that perhaps you all can think through too. So Pop, you chime in about how those items pertain to you. So the first thing that they consider, well, not the first, these are in no particular order. One of the things they considered was perhaps healthcare and making sure that they, at their age and at their stage, they had reliable and healthcare professionals that they trusted. So talk a little bit about how you were able to help. I know Grandma was easier, was she?
Yeah, because she had an insurance that transferred to Florida. Dad didn't, so he had to get a new insurance plan. He had to find new doctors and, PCPs or primary care physicians.
Yeah.
And Mom did too, even in that regard. So going to doctor's appointments and stuff. And now you got to start all over.
Starting all over. So making sure that you have healthcare professionals that they feel comfortable with too, because the whole point of having the healthcare professionals is that they go. And sometimes if you don't like your doctors, you don't know your doctors, you don't feel like you have good coverage, that was a consideration as well. And we wanted to make sure, speaking of the sandwich generation, I'm just really concerned that they just had good quality of life. And, Grandma had some replacements going on, and Papa was...
Hip replacement, and all of that was done before they got here. So we had them do their surgeries. Dad had a surgery on his shoulder. And had that done in Maryland before they came because of the insurance coverage and the doctors that they had for 20 and 30 years. So that was a big shift and a transition.
But make sure you're building that into your timeline, because we wanted to make sure before we got down here that they were recovered, that they were 100%, and that they could really enjoy it.
The doctors released them.
Period. Exactly. The next big one that you've heard us mention 4 and 5 times is because land and space, right? So I'm going to let Pop talk about this. He's a country boy through and through, and that has trickled down through our generations. We love the country. Our family both sides are actually from North Carolina. So being in farmland, having a lot of land, cultivating land, they loved planting and having gardens. Pop is a tractor man. So it was really, really important that if he was going to come down here and be happy, because we didn't want to just come down here and you just live. No. He wanted to be happy, and we wanted him to be happy.
He fired my lawn guy.
Correct.
He's like, I'm going to take over the lawn in the backyard. You can let them do all the little cutting of the trees and all that. He wanted his tractor.
Right. So what was the first thing, I think, when you moved down here and you saw the place that she said, Dad, what do you think of this? In your mind, when you saw the land, did you say, I can see myself here?
No.
Oh.
What I said, this is it.
Okay.
I told her we don't need to look no further.
Okay.
When I saw this place here, I said, baby, this is it.
Okay.
Because I could visualize getting outside, doing my thing, riding my zero turn, cutting my grass, trimming my hedges and what have you. That was the closer for me. It's when I saw the land that it was on.
Yeah.
And I wasn't backed up to nobody. I'm backed up to the woods, the trees, the
The water.
pool, the water. I even have a creek running through my property.
There
So
you
I
go.
go down and just sit there and look at the creek, listen to the water run.
Yeah.
So that's my lifestyle. I'm not one who sit in the house and watch the edge of night or what have you. No. I've seen so many guys my age, they go in the house and they said they didn't want to do anything once they retired. But guess what? Short-lived.
Right.
They go in the home.
They call that couch rotten.
They remove themselves from what they were used to doing, and they just sleep away.
Right. And I think that was part of the conversation too. And learning how to listen and know your audience, right? We knew Papa, and the traditional retire and sit in a rocking chair until you age out, that was not him. He's very active. And to this day, he wakes up at the crack of dawn, gets up, he feeds up, he does what he does. It just looks a little bit different, but as long as I can remember, Pop was up when the sun got up, and he had an entire day before the work day. He would feed up he had pigs and horses, the hens, everybody. A full farm day before 9 a.m. and then he would go into work and work a full 9 to 5 and then come back home and, watch his little game and take care of the family. He had kids, grandkids, and he would do the whole 9. So I think it was important for his routine to look a little bit like that, even though perhaps it could have slowed down. But we didn't want Papa to feel like there wasn't something for him to be doing.
And the other thing I didn't want to have happen, I didn't want Mom and Dad to come when they weren't mobile, when they weren't able, right? I didn't want them to wait till they got too old that they couldn't enjoy.
Exactly.
I was like, nope. I said, now you're hitting your 80s, you're still active and mobile. Thank God you got a great, reasonable amount of health. You'll be able to enjoy down here. And I said, I believe that you'll feel like you got 10 years back when you come here.
Right.
Because you'll be able to, and warm weather is where most senior people will go to when they retire.
Yeah.
Because they're not stuck in the house too cold. When you fall, your bones don't recover as quickly. You get brittle, arthritis sets in the cold weather. So this was an opportunity for them to come. And I think the other thing, Dad, that helped was being in my old neighborhood or in my neighborhood where it was a bunch of senior people who were retired, some older than Mom and Dad.
Oh, yeah.
And they were out there walking miles a day, riding bikes.
Yeah.
I mean, out doing the doggone thing. And Dad got a chance to befriend some of them, and he got a chance to see how these Floridians were living in their older age and living their best life.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So, Pop, how critical was it, or how, I guess, influential was it to have, through those 3 years that you were snowbirding, and you were meeting Mom's neighbors and making friends with some of them, and even having your own personal relationships where they were coming to the DMV to visit you.
I know, right?
How important was seeing their quality of life and kind of showing you that you could have a similar quality of life?
Well, it was very important because there again, I hadn't seen that type of life or living at that age.
Yeah.
And it encouraged me to know that even though I'm turning 80 or I am 80 or I will be 80, what have you, these are things that you can do even in your 80s and your 90s. Yeah. So that was an inspiration also.
Yeah.
To see those people mobile and how they was getting around and what they were into. We had some people there, like in the 80s, playing tennis.
Yeah, pickleball and tennis. Yeah.
Playing pickleball. We had some guys in the 80s playing golf. So I was kind of introduced to all that, and I saw that. I said, wait a minute, 80 is not too bad after all. There are a lot of things you can do at 80 years old.
And is that a difference in culture of being in the DMV, which is like a very fast-paced hustle culture? And, once people retire, they kind of, I don't want to say retire and deteriorate, but it is what it is. So do you feel like the culture was different from the northern culture down to the southern culture?
Yes, it was. It was very much different because you didn't see this back in Maryland.
Yeah.
You didn't see, even though there were people that doing this, but you wasn't involved or you wasn't close by to see these people doing these certain things at a certain age.
Yeah, that was a young boy's game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was very, very impressive to me.
Cool.
And that was motivating also.
You know what else, Dad, too? We had fun going places and exploring Florida. Now, we couldn't do it in 2020 and 21 because of everything being shut down.
Yeah.
But we started finding the horse tracks and stuff. There's a wonderful horse race Down here, there's so much land. That's why so many people move here. Lots of ranches and stables and horses and all of that. We were able to do that. Remember, we took Dad for his birthday to the World Equestrian Center.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
Up
an
in
hour
Orlando.
from here. It's in Ocala.
Ocala.
Just, just an hour from here. And we were able to go to some of the horse races every Wednesday when it's senior day and you get in for free. And that was fun because Dad's around horses and stables and all of that. And then we got a chance to just kind of go hang out at the beach. We found great restaurants to eat at. And it was just fun to be able to do stuff like that. And shopping and decorating the house. And Dad, I make him foreman of all of my major projects that we're doing, doing stuff around the yard and the house and stuff. But because he knows stuff to do, even if he's not doing it now, right? So,
And he know whether they're doing it right or wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a question that is off script, but I think it's important to ask. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Being the patriarch and being the leader of the household, was there ever a moment in this transition where you felt a little bit out of control? Because, leaving your place, Jed's ranch, right? Jed's ranch, moving to...
Girl, he bought that sign with him.
Girl, I made him, though, because I wanted the sign. Because I like the sign.
Tell him about that sign that used to be out in the front of his yard.
I know. Okay. So, sidebar, I'm going to come back to that question.
I know.
So, after being there for so long, I feel like there were things about that house that were very sentimental. That when you live there, you pass it all the time and you maybe take it for granted. But when you realize you're getting ready to lose it, everything becomes monumental. So as I was going through the house, and I'm the historian of the family, me and Aunt Monica, we like to videotape and take pictures of everything. I remember going through the house that last time I knew I would be there. And I went through and I recorded it as is, and I remember even when you enter in their driveway, there's these wrought iron gates and there's a beautiful sign right underneath their address and their number and their mailbox. And it said Jed's Ranch. And that's a sign that we always saw, but it just meant so much more that this is technically no longer Jed's Ranch, but I thought it would be because Jed's Ranch is wherever JED is,
That's right.
okay? So I was like, we gotta take this sign with us and bring it here and incorporate it somehow. But that just goes to show about him being Joe Davis, him being the patriarch, him being such a rock in our family, and for him to have controlled so much of that. Did it feel like a loss of control when you were moving down here? Did that make that hard? Because I know your yes was a little bit of a delayed yes. Was that one of the things that was playing in your mind, is like you feel like I'm losing what I made?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
See, sometime in life, when you know who you're dealing with. My daughter made it very easy for me to make that transition too, by me knowing the type of person she is.
Okay.
So that meant a lot to have a daughter that always say, that's my Deedy.
She was very proud of you.
I always
Yes.
called him
Okay.
Deedy.
And she was always
My Deedy.
a Deedy's girl.
Deedy's girl.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am.
So I was very comfortable, really in doing that. Just the fact that I had been there for 40 years and what have you, that was the hardest part. But I never wondered about losing control or what
Okay.
have you, because I knew that even here, I'm in control.
There
She
you
don't
go.
know it, but I'm still in control.
There you go. And
Okay?
Because he knows I ultimately respect and love my dad.
Yeah.
I value our relationship, and I'm mature enough to back down, to be silent. And a lot
Yeah.
of times I don't need to win a battle. I don't need
We
to
choose
debate.
battles.
I don't need to do any of that.
Yeah.
It's all about respect. And I'm glad I'm here with my dad. I'm enjoying my dad.
Yeah.
And I know how to acquiesce and yield. And here's the other part about it too. Not only do I respect my dad, but my dad also respects me. And I think mutual respect is important, and setting boundaries is important. And I'm grateful that he didn't come in trying to rule and control everything, but he allows me to also have input. And we talk a lot about things that we want to do, things that we want to accomplish around the house, and we share ideas.
I was going to say, it felt, and I'm outside looking in, because I know a lot of the conversations were just y'all two, because that's what mattered. I always saw that there was a collaborative energy.
we were.
You know,
We did
she
talk.
has a vision, but Pop adds on to the vision. Or maybe Pop has an idea and she'll tweak it to make sure it fits the house or it fits her lifestyle. And I always saw a lot of conversation happening. And so if we could be of any example, I think that's what helps when you have these major transitions that could go left, right? There was a lot of opportunity for this to go left and cause rifts in the family and people to be unhappy. Collaboration and conversation, and I think that mutual respect is the undertones that keeps that boat afloat.
And you have to talk about that long before y'all move together.
Correct.
Because not everybody has a good relationship with their parents.
Yeah.
Not everybody respects their parents, and not everybody has the right coping skills, the right temperament, and has the right level of grace for each other to
Grace.
be able to allow each other to be independent individual, but also in their roles. I'm daughter, but I'm also still woman, professional, businesswoman, and all of those things. So we have to also do that. And a lot of the time, the other thing too for me is like, okay, well, you know what? One of the things I'll never do is get into a situation where I have such a disagreement with my parents that we don't speak. We're not together. We're stuck with each other, and there's never going to be a time that I'm going to let anything sabotage that.
Right. There's one rule in our family. One rule in our family, I think it's an unspoken rule, but all of us abide by it. We don't fall out.
No.
We do not
will discuss,
fall out.
We'll debate, we'll fuss at each other and all of that. But I'm the next minute for me, it's like, okay, Dad, what you want for breakfast?
Correct.
I mean, seriously, I'm just not going to allow attitudes to foster bad blood between us.
Resentment,
It's not gonna happen.
there's no space for
I'm never going to
resentment.
be that person that has a regret.
Yeah.
Or something that happens and I'm like, man, I should have said something before Dad went on, to glory, or Mom's no longer here.
Yeah.
That won't be my testimony.
Yeah, because life is fragile and we just love each other too much to allow anything to come between us. Speaking of which, I think it's important too, there's 3 other kids that were in the midst.
Y'all gonna meet them eventually, my brother.
Yeah, we talk a lot about my mom and
Yeah.
Papa, and they have a very special bond, but how was it with your boys? Because he's very tight with all 3 of his boys.
Yeah.
And they used to come to the house every Sunday. Like, we had a lot of traditions that,
Family
stemmed
gatherings,
from being at their house. So what does that look like now with your son still being at home? All your grandboys are at home, and I know you have me now. But I know that I don't make up for the other grandkids that you miss. So, what has that been like transitioning now to?
Well, the thing about that is that by me going back there, that's one of my reasons for going back there, too, to let them know that they are still a part of the family, even though I'm gone. And I spent so much valuable time with them when I was back there.
Yeah.
So they understand this gives me an opportunity to spend time with my daughter and my granddaughter that I wasn't able to do over a period of years because my daughter, she stays on the road, she stays gone, she is in this and she is in that. So I really never got a chance to spend valuable time and quality time with my daughter. So even though she's been gone and everything and we're back together, she's still my little daughter. She haven't changed.
And the boys understood. And I think it's good, too, to know that...
And they understood.
Yeah, and Pop still drives back and forth to visit and to spend good quality time with them. So that wasn't too bad.
No.
Okay, so this conversation is so good. We're going to bring you back for part 2, which will be our season finale. So thank you guys for joining us again for another episode of Parental Advisory, Chronicles of the Sandwich Generation. We'll see you next week.
Hey, I am here live at the Grand Hyatt in Tampa Bay. This is where we're going to be holding Cultivate, January the 18th in 2025. And we are so excited. We're putting the plans together, putting the final touches on a wonderful day. If you're a student, an entrepreneur, a career professional, an emerging leader, if you're a mentor or mentee, and you just want to reinvent your entire career, this is going to be the place to be. We're going to be honoring Dr. Martin Luther King's dream of continuing service, but for us to be able to ignite and celebrate who we are, but also be able to reinvent our careers for our next level. It's the best time to do it. January the 18th. We'll see you here. Register today at the link below.